Yuki dashed off once more, and his pursuing beast yelled that he should quit chasing adventures recklessly. Yuki is son of a god from Zhaolin, followed by his spiritual beast, Dilshan. By tradition, every individual turning 18 must face various trials, including hunting and slaying alien creatures. Suddenly Yuki halted, and Xiangshan collided with his back. Sayoshan snapped at him to watch where he was going, or he'd wish he were dead. Observing the ancient dance, he remarked there were fewer performers than expected, and declared it was now his turn. He unleashed his fire skill, incinerating all the ants. He proclaimed his deed done, and that he could stride boldly, famed as the strongest 18-year-old. CEO Shan noted his appetite for attention, but reminded him the test wasn't over. Indeed, to pass the test, he must descend to Earth and amass 1 billion within 3 years. Yuki scoffed. 3 years? 3 months would suffice. Earth is a juvenile, low-tier world whose inhabitants deem themselves gods. He thought of the World Bank, reputedly a lucrative venue. He noted that even celestial beings are not omnipotent. A guard shoved him out, declaring he lacked both experience and credentials, dismissing him outright. His next stop was an esports club, where young people supposedly earn fortunes. There, a girl accosted him, saying that even if he kissed her feet later, she'd be blamed for missing such an opportunity. Yuki wondered how he ended up there. Ultimately, he was employed as a security guard. But then he leapt up, recalling he'd been summoned here before. They'd thrown someone over. Retrieving a business card, he noted it was 100% red. Yet, he thought, you won't know until you try. He refused to remain a loser. Calling the number, he offered to earn extra money, and was told to come to the KTV 8888 studio, where he was expected. Arriving, he was bound by a woman. When he questioned it, she replied it was part of the game and ordered him to be silent if he wanted payment. Eventually, he realized he'd been kidnapped. Next to him, a man writhed in pain, begging to be freed. The man succumbed. One guard called him a fool, saying the drug's effects were too strong, and ordered his men to dispose of the body and fetch the next victim. The next was another Yuki. He asked why, noting that where money appears, scams follow. They claimed it was for experiments, and he too died. The man laughed, calling them gullible for responding to such ads and saying no medicine could save them. Darwinism at work. They prepared to inject Yuki, but the needle broke against his neck. Their leader scolded them for failing such a simple task. He seized the syringe and, straining, tried to plunge it into Yuki's neck himself. Yuki broke free and slapped everyone around him. The mastermind, seemingly drugged, sneered that he doubted Yuki was a warrior and hated fighters. Let him face an artificial war. Afterwards, they were incapacitated, and the leader thought reagents useless, lamenting they couldn't overcome the war even with them. As he turned to leave, someone halted him at the door, mocked the others as reptiles, and lamented wasting a day when he could have doubled his rate and earned a bonus. Stepping outside, he muttered to himself about his misfortune. No sooner did he step out than a young woman lunged at him. She pounced, declared him caught, and stamped his cheek with her boot. Yuki challenged her certainty. She snapped that he should be quiet and merely answer her questions. As Yuki reached for her chest, she sprang away in alarm. Blushing furiously, she hurled insults and attacked him again. Yuki insisted he meant no harm and told her not to overreact. She asked what he meant. In response, she struck him in the groin. She sneered that only scum served the silver dragon, so he deserved disdain. Furious, Yuki reminded her she'd ignored his warning and asked if she'd aided the fallen man. While he prepared to use his skill, she noticed he lacked the silver dragon tattoo. She demanded proof he wasn't one of their members. Yuki paused, claiming he was just a duped guard tired of bad luck, and warned her to face the Son of God's wrath. Terrified, she apologized, admitting she'd mistaken him for a villain. He asked if she meant a warrior, one who wields the fire spirit. Known as the beggar guard, he said, and now cleared. He refused to stay. Shaking her head at another error, Yuki walked off, lamenting how tough it is to earn money amidst this nonsense. She called after him to wait. Bewildered, Yuki asked what she wanted. Wasn't money her concern? Her expression softened as she offered help and asked the amount. He named 1 billion. Stunned, she asked why 1 billion. No union would pay so much without agreement, and demanded his explanation. Yuki reminded her she'd mentioned war. Were warriors well paid? She scoffed at his ignorance. He explained warriors defend their realm from evil, blessed with strength to fight monsters and crime, admired by all, their aura like the sun's rays. Yuki cut her off, demanding she stop praising and answer his question. He pressed, "Could one really earn wealth as a warrior?" She replied that joining the alliance is for justice's glory, not profit, and seeking money alone won't make him a true warrior. Yuki said his only interest was money, then asked what she'd pay for those tasks. She admitted she didn't have even 10,000. Pocketing her small offer, he felt wealth awaited him at the race's end. She chased him, pointing out he hadn't asked what the tasks involved. Yuki stopped, tapped her shoulder, and said security work was temporary. She nodded in understanding. He wondered if his own power could match a warrior's, yet admitted ignorance of them or the Union. Had he truly come from an isolated realm? Zealand asked if he belonged to an ancient warrior clan. Yuki replied he was simply the supreme god's son. Chiding his bravado, Zealand formally assigned him to find the owl, starting with its subordinate, the sparrow, whom he must locate first. At the Silver Dragon Karaoke Club, Yuki trailed her, mocking the warehouse toughs as hyenas, and hoping the sparrow would be inside. Seizing his arm, Zealand warned him to let her go and insisted he take medicine before a relapse struck. As the group passed, Zealand murmured that Fang of the Warriors Union had beaten the owl's sparrow to the task, so their involvement must remain secret. Frost, the snake, glared. Fen teased. "What is it?" Frost said he'd glimpsed an old friend. Fen chuckled. "Sure. Every beauty's familiar, right?" When the trio departed by car, Yuki and Zealand chased them outside. Zealand noted that with the hyenas gone, only the sparrow linked to the owl. Inside the vehicle, the sparrow begged release, warning the owl would trace her soon. She'd killed countless warriors, so they'd better dig deep graves. Above them, the owl shadowed their escape, watching the sky. Frost the snake asked who the owl was. She explained it was the agent who'd slipped his grasp a year ago, and they baited her in the suburbs to spare civilians. Suddenly an owl landed atop their car and demanded the truth. As Yuki and Zealand stepped out, Fen asked if it was really the owl. Frost affirmed its strength surpassed his own. The owl declared he'd adapted to 3 reagents a year ago, but was now inoculated with a 4th, making him 10 times stronger. Appearing behind Frost, the owl said he now sensed him differently. Frost reeled at his lightning speed. 10 minutes later, Yuki and Zealand took a taxi to Xing's site, noting the owl's arrival meant their search was complete and they'd face critique. Cries for help rang from a nearby car. Zealand urged Yuki to rescue the sparrow. She knew too much of the Silver Dragon's secrets to perish now. Yuki pried her free, reminding her the world offers no reward for service. Recognizing him, the sparrow asked what he wanted. Yuki offered a simple deal. She must state the price of her life. Meanwhile, the owl had already felled 2 noble Union warriors and commanded them to choose who would die first. In that moment, Sweet sprinted in, torn between standing by and intervening as warriors fell. Believing warriors defend the innocent, she couldn't watch them die. Desperate, she hoped to buy them time, and that Yuki was trustworthy. The owl locked onto her at once. Zealand stepped forward demanding their release, but the owl ignored her and struck. Wising Lin realized she hadn't a moment to dodge. The owl seized her, warning that the puny guard had overestimated himself and decreed she must die. Frost the snake rose defiantly, but the owl merely smirked that the real fun was just beginning. Frost the snake lunged at the owl. From the corner of his eye, he saw Zealand administer a reagent injection. Frost the snake stumbled back, incredulous. "Are you joking?" Fen shouted. "What's happening?" "Is she a silver dragon monster?" Frost ordered her aside. Recalling the club, Frost realized she'd helped the owl escape a year ago and matched his strength. He warned they must call the Union for reinforcements. The owl charged, demanding to know why they were fleeing. When the mist cleared, the 2 Union agents had vanished. Sparrow reminded Usui she recognized him and asked his demand. He offered to spare her life, for a price. Sparrow explained their group was outlawed by the Union and warriors a year ago, forcing them underground. Many quit, so they used any means to recruit. He asked if the Silver Dragon Club was theirs. Sparrow corrected him. "It's called the Hidden Dragon until the Dragon King awakens, for they're too weak to face the Union directly." "See?" she said. After discussing, Yuki rose and began to leave. Sparrow shouted she'd wait, promising to reveal a valuable secret tied to his companion. Yuki paused. Sparrow revealed the owl once said an orphan had survived 6 reagents, becoming the Dragon King, a feat even the owl deemed impossible. Fascinated, she'd investigated and learned this girl, like the owl, survived the ordeal, hence her Dragon King claim. Yuki recalled their past conversation and was thoroughly shocked. Sparrow warned that reagents can induce bloodlust, amnesia, madness, or death. If the Dragon King taps his power, he might lose himself. For this intelligence, the Union rewarded her. Would he now rescue her? The owl taunted Lysine for her rejection despite his lifelong lessons in resilience, then sneered at her fleeting memory. Zealand attacked again, But the owl easily blocked her and mocked her inadequate speed and strength. He insisted he'd awaken her true power. In response, Zealand struck him with her foot. He caught her leg, declared, "Let's begin," slammed her down, and shattered her leg. Undeterred, Zealand rose, barely fazed, and snapped his arm. The owl lectured that only hatred forged real strength. She must forsake kindness, betray her former allies, and embrace harsh reality to unleash her full power. He struck her once more. The owl closed in, praising her unique triumph over 6 reagents and confessing envy of her power. With her strength, they'd no longer fear Union might, and earning awe is no crime. Then wise Zealand began her transformation. The transformed owl admired her final form's beauty, breathless, as the Union deems them artificial monsters and vows their total destruction. Now she must reveal her powers. Together, they'll build a world without weakness, where all are warriors, the hidden dragon's creed. Suddenly, Yuki crept up behind Zealand and gripped her shoulder. She spun free, striking him aside. Yuki observed that Sparrow warned of her mental break. She no longer knew herself. The owl snarled, demanding to know his intentions. Yuki threatened that touching his livelihood would cost them their lives. Shingen tried a sneak blow, but Yuki caught her wrist, insisting he needed room to teach this feathered fiend a lesson. The owl mocked his desperation and unleashed air spikes. Zealand met him midair with another strike. Colliding with Earth, the owl stirred dust and marveled at facing both a distant attacker and a leaping combatant, a formidable pair. He wondered if surviving their relentless assault was even possible. Yuki conceded her simple tactic worked, then drew his fiery purple sword. Zealand leapt for an aerial assault but recoiled at his power and landed safely. Though his strength had multiplied, he knew mere aerial attacks wouldn't suffice. Spotting Yuki, the owl taunted, "Didn't expect this? My flames even scorched the air, now it's my turn." "The Union will reward me well, so I'll spare you," Yuki declared, severing the owl's arm. The owl hissed at his false mercy. The owl attempted a rear strike, but froze, stunned that surprise attacks failed. Did he stand any chance? Yuki mocked his stubbornness, removed his golden mask, and asked how to revert Zealand to her true form. Her current state embarrassed her. The owl explained her resistance lets the power control her. Only time or forced acceptance can calm it. A year earlier, he reached the shelter's entrance where a man warned the Union had found their location and was coming. The drug was released swiftly, and the reagents in their bodies began to activate. Yet the experiment failed, an owl operative lamented. Sova, masking up, vowed to find new orphan recruits. But when the warriors arrived, they froze in terror at the mutated children. Fong told Frost, the snake, the shelter was ruined, but the children had become monsters. He'd deal with them while she chased the owl to prevent his escape. Yuki, donning an owl mask resembling Zealand's, recalled the entire summer. And the girl, bewildered, wondered how any of it could be real. At that moment, Sully hadn't found the owl either. He extended his hand to her, urging her to come along so he could escort her home. "Into our big family," he promised. There, many children like her thrived under the director's attentive care. The owl then approached, promising that one annual bite would grant her strength, though some family would claim her afterward. In the shelter's next group photo, no adults remained. They'd vanished, the owl explained, adopted by new families. Zealand lamented her curiosity, but the director discouraged contact. Zealand mused that if the director was an owl, what did that make the children? The owl cut in, scolding that mourning was pointless. They'd been dead long ago, and strode away. Lucille, shaken, whispered, "Did they truly die?" Someone replied that those who couldn't handle the reagents burned up. Their skin blistered away, leaving bone and sinew exposed, an agony like 1,000 cuts. Rising, the owl urged Zealand to embrace hatred, let rage consume her, and rip her enemies apart in vengeance. Staring at Yuki, she thought he might stand in for the owl, eager for her to unlock the key to a new world. Yuki placed a hand on her shoulder, telling her their task was done and she must move forward. She recoiled, insisting he stay back. She felt repulsive in her current form. Yuki smiled reassuringly, calling her stunning, and she hesitated, unsure why. Transforming back, she snapped that she'd forgotten to question the owl about the Dragon King and the abducted children. Yuki noted her blank expression. Had she truly not mastered her new power? He explained the Dragon King doesn't exist now that she'd slain an owl. So the Union would offer no reward, and she owed him compensation. "Then can I ask something in return?" Zealand pressed. Yuki bristled. "Don't confuse me. First, you must compensate me for that owl." He wondered aloud how much that would fetch, planning to ask the Union. Zealand promised to cover it this month plus half her earnings. "Deal?" They agreed, and Yuki asked what else she wanted. Zealand declared she aspired to warrior strength and to join the Union to aid others. The owl wasn't fully dead. A woman approached him, lamenting that his reagent had been replaced by Hall of Furious cells, or he wouldn't have survived such damage. Rising, the owl acknowledged her life-saving aid, praising her for the organ regeneration treatment. The woman hesitated, doubting if their partnership was worth continuing now that he'd been maimed by his own ally. 10 minutes earlier, Frost the Snake and Fen fled the scene. Fen sighed relief, while Frost warned that even combined fire and ice couldn't have spawned such a thick fog. They'd underestimated the Silver Dragon. Fang ordered him to summon reinforcements immediately. They couldn't afford to let their quarry slip away again. A woman then appeared, saying backup wasn't needed. She'd happened by on a detour, and they should brief her on this Black Rank conflict. The owl claimed it was pure accident. He hadn't foreseen such chaos and doubted he'd have survived otherwise. Fen admitted she and Frost had no idea who this uninvited guest was. The owl smirked that he'd orchestrated everything. Only the boy's origin and alliance with Lis Ilan baffled him, as no Union records existed on him. Fen asked if he truly believed the boy was an outsider. The owl mused that biochemical transformations were strictly Union territory. If hidden dragons emerged, the Union would secretly deploy operatives to investigate. Fen yawned, suggesting he find a hiding spot while she gathered intel on the mysterious youth. Glancing at her watch, she gasped. It was already 11 p.m., and she'd skipped beauty sleep to be here. She readied herself to leave. The owl called after her that he'd hide in the ruins and needed more rare animal blood for his research. At the guard post, Xiangshan sat hungry, griping about his master's rogue antics and his own empty stomach. He sprang up, demanding to know what deal his master had struck. He'd been left clueless when they parted. Before departing, the master had told him not to worry. He'd seek a wealthy family in need of a personal bodyguard. Sayoshan recalled his father's warning. His master shouldn't exploit power for profit. But as a fighter, earning $1 billion seemed impossible. Returning home, Yuki asked in disbelief if the guardhouse was truly his master's residence. Opening the door, Zealand exclaimed at Xiangshan's fluffiness. What an adorable house lamb. She scooped him up, praising his big, fluffy tail. Even alpacas can't compete. Yuki quipped, a sheep with a tail, really. Mortified, Xiangshan wriggled free and dashed off, with Zealand calling after him to come back. Turning, she froze. Sayoshan had transformed into a massive lion and snarled that her insult to his spirit was unforgivable. Zealand insisted nothing had changed and snapped, "What's with the barking?" Yuki stepped in, urging Xiangshan back. His spirit was immature and needed to tune into her aura gently. Xiangshan collapsed, whining that he'd exhausted himself after only a few barks. Zealand gasped. You can talk?" She recalled his growl and asked, "Did you just curse me?" Yuki reassured her she'd misread everything. Xiangshan's paranormal sense had simply misinterpreted her tone. Yuki scooped up Xiangshan, urging him to apologize at once. She's their golden goose. Their income hinges on her. Xiangshan asked what had happened, and Yuki vowed to make amends immediately. Xiangshan darted to Zealand, confessed it was his fault, and savored her gentle caress. He'd bask in her affection as long as she pleased. Overcome, Zealand cooed at his adorableness, unable to resist. She blinked, feeling mentally spent. Images of monster transformations, a murderous director, a self-styled son of God, and a talking beast flooded her mind. She needed sleep, and tomorrow the nightmare would end. Collapsing, she fainted. Zealand cried out to Yuki, and he explained she'd simply run out of energy after so many harrowing events. Cradling her, Yuki warned Xiangshan to be careful. Suddenly, a massive worm burst from the earth. Zealand shrieked as its jaws snapped, its body smashing through the door. It bellowed that this land was its domain. Lucille leapt up, frantic. "Where is she?" Spotting the worm's den, she recalled Zealand had stayed at his inn, and realized she must have wandered here after fainting. Yuki, perched on a windowsill, greeted Zealand with, "Good morning," as Xiangshan, now paler than before, perched on her shoulder. Flustered, Zealand demanded why he was here. Had he really watched her sleep all night? He reminded her they couldn't share a room unchaperoned. Yuki grinned that if his shelter hadn't been destroyed by monsters, he'd never have endured her snoring. After all, his only interest was payment. Zealand snapped, "Monsters attacked the city?" and grabbed the remote to switch on the news. The reporter warned that several creatures had appeared overnight, injuring citizens, and predicted more attacks as summer approached, urging vigilance. Zealand gasped. Summer was imminent. They had to act quickly. Yuki called, "Today I'll teach you," and pulled out his notebook. He noted, "You can start work anytime, but first, we must log all income and expenses." He asked what she assumed her pay would be. Zealand rolled her eyes. Of course he'd bring up money rather than morals. She resolved to keep her reply simple and honest. Remembering his behavior yesterday, she steeled herself not to invent excuses. She'd call herself precisely what he saw, a money slave. Yuki announced he already felt the lure of wealth and hurried on. Suddenly a woman appeared, greeting Zealand warmly. "Long time no see, dear niece." Overjoyed, Zealand embraced her and called her aunt. The aunt glanced at Yuki and asked who he was. Zealand replied, "This is Yuki. He's very powerful." The aunt admitted surprise. She'd never met him before. Zealand explained he was a warrior from another city, not a mere supermarket security guard. "Security guard?" the aunt mused. Curious title for a warrior. She asked Yuki if he and Zealand were the same age, and smirked at his naive disguise, doubting his investigative ambitions. Yuki asked her what interested him so much. Zealand scoffed, thinking him a fool. The more he pried, the faster she'd uncover his true identity. Yuki replied that his payment was in advance. Zealand froze in shock. She snapped that he was mocking her, belittling security work while feigning union indifference. Zealand pressed why they'd come. Yuki wanted to know his owl reward, and she'd tagged along for company. Zealand noted the owl was dead, no reward, and lamented failing to find him when so many orphans perished. Yuki told her not to blame herself. She'd done all she could, scouring welfare centers monthly. Even she missed him. He comforted her, promising they'd grow stronger, and urged her to leave before Frost, Snake, and Fen arrived. She agreed to keep her changes secret. Zealand confided to her aunt she'd join the union to atone for losing the director, yearning to save lives as she did. Her aunt laughed, saying she need only pass the easiest entry exams. Yuki, impatient, asked how much longer they'd chat. Someone might know his owl bounty by now. The aunt leaned in, whispered to Yuki, and he turned bright red. Zealand asked what she'd said. Yuki shrugged. She suggested we spend the night together. He inquired her age. She replied she'd soon be 40 but looked 30, a testament to self-care. Yuki recalled how Sparrow suspected she was a wealthy fraud. Her true riches made him think all women were so resolute. Zealand hesitated, then admitted she had nowhere to stay. Yuki offered his place. She and Xiangshan could stay and study any time. Yuki teased that rent was waived, but tuition remained non-negotiable. Zealand snapped at his miserly ways, mentioned money and his manners vanished. What a jerk. She led Yuki home, noting she lived alone so he and Xiangshan would sleep on the sofa. Yuki flopped onto the couch, saying it was roomier than his old place. He added he was unemployed, the parking lot closed, so he'd stay until he found work. At his pace, it might take a while. She didn't mind. Zealand feigned cheer. "Of course I don't mind," then mused how he could be so stubborn. Yuki called Xiangshan forth. The fox appeared, sporting a bronze earring and a grin. Xiangshan jumped onto his lap, warning that solo power use drains immense energy. Zealand patted him, praising his effort. If the warriors had spotted him, they'd be overwhelmed. But once her master joined the union, everything would be above board. Yuki reminded her he'd already declined interest, and she retorted that those who chase only money can't become true warriors. Zealand, fuming, resolved to refine herself and counter that warriors earn handsomely, and their honor uplifts us. She then accepted his stance and proposed they begin training immediately. Zealand mused that all life springs from living energy. Yuki explained this force. Spiritual energy, supernatural power, miracle ability, must be mastered to unlock extraordinary skills. He added that he channels fire energy across its 4 perfected stages, demonstrating he summoned ember, flame, blaze, and flash. These can merge, he said, to forge diverse techniques. Zealand, surprised, asked which ones. Yuki noted each technique blends raw power with spirit. Victory demands more than spirit alone. Zealand nodded. Ancient warriors lacked spiritual energy, so they honed martial arts instead. Suddenly Yuki spotted something. Moments earlier, Zealand had suspected their targets would arrive. Activating her all-seeing eye, she located them in the ruined apartment. Amidst the debris, they watched as Yuki continued his lesson. Noticing Xiangshan's aura flare, Zealand identified him as a spirit beast, and deduced Yuki was Union intelligence. Catching her glare, Yuki asked how she detected his hidden tracking mark. She admitted his senses were unusually sharp. Zealand pointed to a faint sigil on the ceiling. Yuki revealed it marked him as tracked. Checking his coat, he confirmed she'd tagged him at their first meeting to monitor his movements. He recalled how her inquiry about the owl's bounty had first made him wary. Removing his jacket, he beckoned her and peeled away her sigil. Zealand asked why she hadn't sensed it earlier. He replied only now had she gained enough strength. Embarrassed, Zealand bolted away, insisting their closeness was accidental. She fretted he must think she'd done it intentionally. What mortification. Yuki, equally flustered, blurted it was accidental and apologized for his slow reaction. After a tense moment, they composed themselves and agreed to resume training. Zealand hesitantly asked to learn energy mastery. Though fire energy felt harsh, she'd take the name Lena, and it felt right. Yuki cautioned he couldn't teach her personal techniques. Zealand pressed. Why not? He explained that everyone's energy and abilities differ. Even with fire energy, her techniques must be uniquely hers. She must forge her own path through self-improvement. Since she carries spiritual beast blood, she naturally senses energy. Zealand realized that warriors need innate talent. Without energy receptivity, progress is impossible. She asked how one improves. Yuki instructed her to open herself. Close your eyes and feel. Zealand obeyed. In her vision stood a planet-sized, gem-encrusted door in empty space. She seemed a mote of dust beside it. He told her to will her fist open, then energy would flow to her. Afterward, Yuki reflected that beast blood helped. But awakening energy here was far harder than in his world. Had Zealand truly unlocked it? Zealand blinked, puzzled. Unlocked what? Yuki smiled. That door, it opened with a single push. He laughed that a good student made his hours of effort seem trivial. He was amazed she succeeded so swiftly. He invited her to show him exactly what she'd opened. At Union HQ, an agent announced her identity confirmed. Zealand gasped. Why her? She had no idea how many female operatives the Union employed. She realized her value as a test subject. Yuki must have tracked her deliberately. Compliance would spare him, though she'd likely revisit the ruins and face the owl again. Yuki, dumbfounded, declared it beyond explanation. Exhausted after training, Zealand admitted she hadn't realized how draining energy use could be. It felt like sickness. Yuki explained her internal reserves were tiny. She mustn't exceed her limit or risk death. Zealand said she understood, but wondered if her ability was fundamentally flawed. Yuki admitted it was seriously off. Zealand, terrified, fretted she might never become a warrior. He revealed her gift. The sphere of omniscience. The ultimate combat support power that couldn't fully manifest here. In his realm, only his father possessed it. He confessed doubts. Could she be his father's secret daughter, inheriting this power? He'd heard rumors of such a liaison. Zealand warned that if he spoke another oddity, she'd send him to a psychiatrist. Then the doorbell rang. Zealand darted to answer. Aunt Shaw stood outside. Shaw entered, announcing this was their third meeting. Zealand protested. They'd only met twice. Aunt Shaw laughed, teasing that Zealand's memory must be slipping. Yuki frowned at Aunt Shaw. Had he really kept Zealand in the dark about being tracked with her peeping technique, or merely wished her ignorant of it? Zealand hastily explained she'd intended to visit Aunt Shaw tomorrow. Lucky she arrived today instead. Aunt Shaw studied her closely, noting Zealand's worried expression. Zealand urged her to look again. Zealand activated her energy, and Aunt Shaw's eyes widened in astonishment. What is this power? Zealand said it felt like countless eyes probing her, an unsettling sensation through and through. Aunt Shaw, speechless, could barely form a question. Zealand suppressed her energy flow and asked Aunt Shaw if she recognized her ability. Aunt Shaw confessed she sensed nothing. What is this? Yuki explained it's the sphere of omniscience, letting Zealand track any movement within its range. Horrified, Aunt Shaw asked if she understood the implications. Yuki assured her the ability was legendary and unbeatable. Its only limit was the user's own physical readiness. Demonstrating, he darted behind Zealand in a blur, tapping her head. She admitted her reactions were like a snail's. Zealand smacked him upside the head, scolding him for his prank. Yuki teased her slowness. Aunt Shaw, regaining composure, praised the ability's battlefield potential and officially invited Zealand to join the Warrior Alliance. Overjoyed, Zealand lunged to hug her. Gushing adoration, Aunt Shaw cautioned her to wait, saying more news was coming. I'm only one of 3 examiners, Shaw reminded her. You still face 2 harsher judges. And Yuki, enlist soon, or your spirit beast here will be purged by the Union. Yuki bristled, asking if that was a threat. Aunt Shaw smiled. No threat, just Union procedure. She assured she'd keep his secret, and noted that joining would solve his money worries. The owl bounty would be 3 million. 3 million? Yuki gasped in surprise. Shaw nodded. That's average. Rare ancient beasts fetch up to 50 million. Yuki, encouraged, begged her to arrange his Union membership. Shaw judged his act impressive. She revealed Zealand's next trial in 3 days. Though fearful now, in 6 months she'd surely succeed. Yuki noted Zealand's frailty, but assured her they'd strengthen her immediately. Approaching Xiangshan, Yuki requested his aid. The spirit beast channeled energy into Zealand, who felt a powerful surge. Yuki explained that Xiangshan's power now flowed through her, making her formidable. She'd breeze through the exam and should test her new strength. Zealand eagerly lunged to try her power on Yuki. He laughed and declined to be her test subject. Overjoyed, Zealand confirmed everything Yuki had said. Aunt Shaw praised her. She now boasted quintuple human strength and a broad aura. Congratulations were due, but Landon remained a threat. 3 days later, the union's entrance exam began with throngs of aspirants crowding HQ's entrance. Inside, candidates climbed to the 3rd floor, where an official announced physical trials and blew his whistle. First challenge, a colossal stone fist that Yuki effortlessly shattered into shards. Observers gasped at his display of power. The next trial, a timed assault, saw Yuki complete it with ease while others lingered over ice cream. The audience murmured disbelief. Some vowed to train harder, others drifted away. Having aced the trials, Yuki called them trivial. Zealand, sipping cola, recalled Aunt Shaw's influence as examiner. A man then stepped forward, congratulated them, and introduced himself as Landon, senior first stage examiner. He explained stage 1, withstand his assault for 5 minutes by any means. He'd boost his speed 5-fold. Landon struck at Yuki. Yuki dodged effortlessly, earning Landon's praise for his agility. The next challenger used gigantism to enlarge his fist, but Landon merely swatted it aside. Landon targeted Zealand, but she vanished before his blow, leaving him stunned. He seized a portly blonde contestant wearing headphones. Another summoned plant vines, but Landon subdued him in an instant. Pausing, Landon commended their resilience and warned he'd now accelerate to 10 times normal speed. At this speed, the giant-fisted challenger attempted a penguin punch, but Landon breezed past, calling him sluggish. The challenger, noting his own quickness, managed to block Landon's kick. His hands could keep pace. A monster contestant sneered that Landon's display was lackluster and urged him to reveal a signature skill to entertain them. Landon scowled at her taunt and vowed she'd answer for it, then ramped his speed 50-fold and lunged. She hit the ground, shaken by his swiftness, admitting she couldn't follow him. And Landon laughed that at last things were interesting. She summoned her forest killer vines. Thorned creepers burst up, encasing his feet, daring him to break free. A bespectacled man in a lab coat sneered that she'd doomed them all by provoking the senior examiner. Landon mused that without speed she posed no threat, but at velocity she could slice steel. So what if the target were stone? He called for medics. The vine wielder lay unconscious from her own assault. The portly contestant vowed vengeance, while the pink-haired girl denounced Landon's brutality. Zealand and Yuki exchanged glances. Aunt Shaw warned not to underestimate him. Yuki reassured her he posed no lasting danger. One candidate pressed to know if the fallen girl still qualified for advancement. Landon declared, if she survived his strike, she passed. Otherwise, she'd be rejected outright. The candidate protested that Landon's retribution was spiteful. They sought alliance, not a death sentence. Landon snapped that this was his arena. Dissenters could leave at once. The challenger thanked him for the clarity, but noted he couldn't simply depart now. Landon announced he'd boost his speed to 30-fold and invited them to witness his true strength. Without warning, he attacked. The contestants' blocks grew weaker as each hit numbed his limbs. Landon then barreled in, struck his shoulder, and told him to rest. He was on the verge of collapse. Turning to the chubby man, Landon remarked that his bulk could serve as an impromptu shield in battle. The man attempted a counter by clenching his fist in his mouth. He shrank, fell spent, and begged Landon's mercy. Landon nodded and told him to recover. To the pink-haired girl, Landon noted her shockwave ability was innovative but futile against his speed. Finally, he faced the hallucination wielder and asked her to demonstrate her power. Landon phased behind Zealand and struck, but she sidestepped. He concluded her power wasn't illusion, since he'd heard her footsteps. Intrigued, he cranked his speed higher to probe her movement-based ability, challenging her not to disappoint. Yuki watched, recalling Aunt Shaw's warning. Landon's curiosity could expose their secret if Xiangshan faltered. Determined to protect her, Yuki leapt in to block Landon's next blow. Landon sneered that he'd saved the strongest foe for last, and never before been attacked, so he'd unleash his true strength. He praised their strikes, then vowed to remove speed caps gradually to test their mettle. Without waiting for reply, Landon granted Yuki 1 minute to ready his skill. Was that enough? When the minute elapsed, Landon declared time up. Yuki confirmed he was prepared. A bespectacled observer noted Yuki's blend of power and wit. His attack had been intentional, likely to protect Zealand. The onlooker warned that provoking Landon risked instant failure. Stalling until the 5 minutes passed was wiser. The pink-haired girl began to praise Zealand, but the glasses man pointed out Yuki's timely save had prevented her elimination. Enraged, Landon reminded them he'd specified 5 minutes and still had 1 second to go. Suddenly, a blonde examiner stepped forward, announcing the arrival of 2 black-rank voodoo evaluators. He chided Landon to follow protocol. Landon retorted he answered only to higher command. Zealand nodded gratefully at Yuki for his rescue. Yuki admitted he couldn't remain a bystander. He wanted to measure Landon's prowess, though he claimed the examiner meant little to him. The second voodoo examiner assured them Landon's harsh methods protected novices. Beneath the stern exterior beat a caring heart. The voodoos snapped their fingers, offering to explain the union's rigor so they'd understand. They revealed that summer brings more spirit beasts, straining union forces, so rookies are thrust into peril to weed out those unfit for battle. The bespectacled man defended Landon, arguing the girl's reckless combat attitude warranted his severity. Mercy isn't a union virtue, and her brashness could have gotten her killed. After Voodoo's briefing, he signaled the next stage and told everyone to look up. The candidates saw a screen depicting a trolley dilemma: divert to kill 1 or 5 people. The man in glasses protested that both outcomes were horrific. The pink-haired girl opted to save 5 at the cost of 1. Voodoo asked if she was sure. Zealand interrupted, insisting any choice brands them murderers and that human life can't be reduced to numbers. The man in glasses nodded, calling the scenario a cynical trap. A clever candidate suggested blindfolding themselves and letting fate decide, preserving their innocence. All eyes turned to Yuki. He said he'd bet on a miracle instead of choosing. He then challenged the premise. With their powers, they could stop the train. There were more than 2 options. The voodoo examiner praised his insight but refused loopholes, demanding again, which track? Zealand asked why they were tested on an unfair choice. What was the purpose? Voodoo offered they could volunteer to die or choose another sacrifice, forcing a resolution. He then conjured a ticking clock device. Zealand begged to withdraw from the test. The man in glasses warned that even subverting the rules, the examiner could twist the outcome. There was a hidden intent. Zealand fumed. We can't underestimate this test. Its real goal remains concealed. Yuki grinned, asked permission to decide, then pointed at Zealand. I choose her for elimination. The examiner applauded and reminded them that if they chose him instead, all would fail. Gasps rippled through the group. The elderly man noted that self-preservation could turn them against each other. The chubby contestant realized a majority vote meant elimination and called the test cruel and obscure. The voodoo examiner snapped that they must act, not debate. Decide now. Zealand fumed she'd rather quit than choose. The voodoo examiner warned that soon she'd get her wish. Yuki stepped forward. The point wasn't saving lives, but sowing doubt to conceal the exam's true aim, testing their insight. The examiner challenged him to explain why he'd drawn that conclusion. Yuki outlined 2 criteria: performance and time. Since each test lasted 5 minutes, the real trial was judging their own limits under the clock. Zealand added that numbering lives was a diversion. They'd been tricked into choosing to obscure the exam's real purpose. If we refuse, she said, we act by conscience but flunk the test. Time pressure forces a decision. Yuki reminded that as examiners they must abide by rules. Pass or fail only after time's up. The voodoo examiner laughed. Yuki alone saw past the ruse, thus everyone else failed and would be eliminated. The chubby contestant lamented his dashed dream of becoming a warrior. Voodoo then grinned. Only those who chose another without hesitation, or refused entirely, would advance. He glared at Zealand, warning that a compassionate soul might yet prove a worthy warrior by completing the task. With that, he congratulated the successful few and vanished. The bespectacled elder sighed relief. This first stage suited him far better. Zealand eyed Yuki, sensing his unease, and asked what troubled him. Yuki admitted he'd wondered what he'd choose in that dilemma. These tests weren't pointless. Landon picked the nimble, Voodoo, the resolute. The elder answered for him. The true victor is one who overcomes remorse without celebrating. Wasn't that the hallmark of a real warrior? Then the elder announced stage 3 had begun, but Yuki objected that no examiner had appeared. The headphone wearer grumbled it had been ages since anyone showed up. Stretching and inflating his bulk, he declared it the perfect moment to restore energy by charging himself. Yuki approached him, puzzled. Did he mean fattening himself up or dressing up? He admitted he was fat. Upon joining the Union, he insisted on the self-coined nickname Fat Shield, which stuck easily thanks to its memorability. The elderly man with glasses confessed he didn't know anyone's nickname yet, but argued that choosing one binds warriors together and strengthens their resolve. The pink-haired girl raised her hand, saying she already had a nickname. "Call me the Queen of Ruin," she declared. The Yukai laughed, claiming the title didn't fit her. She seemed more like a servant than a queen of destruction. Zealand smacked him on the head, warning him to respect others' feelings and not openly mock them. The girl burst into tears, calling him disgusting and insisting she hated him. A fox spirit approached, soothing her. "Queens don't cry over fools. It's beneath them," he whispered. The bespectacled man then introduced himself as Baboon. His unique hand made the name apt, and teased that without nicknames, they'd be just a pair. Zealand shot back that she wasn't paired. Lacking a fitting moniker, they could simply call her Lai Zealand. Yukai proclaimed himself Son of God, or if preferred, just Yukai. Baboon cautioned that Son of God sounded boastful. True warriors inspire trust rather than flaunt titles. An alarm rang out. The chubby guy asked if the exam had started as the hall began to collapse. Sandy hands burst from the floor. Yuka guessed that, given the Union's reputation for safety, the threat must originate within. A colossal sand golem emerged. Atop its shoulder stood Auntie Sahu, their third and final examiner, announcing a 10-minute challenge. Destroy the Sand Guardians. Yukai surged forward, claiming one strike would finish it. Shore scoffed at his naivety. "Why?" Zealand screamed, aghast as the creatures began to regenerate. The sand golem lunged at Yuji, but he nimbly evaded. Shore, intent on testing Yuji's strength, urged him to reveal his true power. After the first stage, Shore met examiner Landon and asked how he fared after trading blows with the boy. Land replied in surprise that she knew him, then doubted the student met their criteria. Shore challenged him, and Land's hand betrayed his doubt. Land and Groza chastised her pride, blaming her distraction. Had Voodoo not interrupted, he'd have schooled her well. Shah Hussein revealed that headquarters sent Landon to audit their duties, warning them not to underestimate him. Landon retorted that he served only the war, not top brass, and Shah lamented as she passed by. Given his rank, he hardly cares what he does upon joining the Union. He overlooks situations. They must champion justice to prove their integrity. Landon asked if that was truly leadership's stance. Andy Shaw halted, asking what he meant, then clarified it was just her personal opinion. Landon replied that he understood but wouldn't meddle, since it didn't concern him. The fight raged on as Yuki unleashed his purple flame fire technique. He grinned, declaring he'd chosen not to hold back this time. At that instant, the sand golem struck him, sending him crashing into the ground. Shore thought he'd misjudged Yuki's evasive skills. Yukai chimed in, noting each examiner's style differs. One values strength, two rely on intellect, and this one's approach is unique. Simply destroying them won't suffice. He added that Yuki, the contest's frontrunner, needed to showcase his talents fully and discern this stage's objective. Then Lee Zealand dashed over, anxiously checking if he was all right. He said he'd rest while they continued and believed first place was now his for the taking. The other examinees braced for combat near the golem. Baboon noted its rapid regeneration and urged finding a recovery limit or weak point. Zealand agreed and suggested splitting up to strike different spots. Repeated regeneration there would reveal its vulnerability. Baboon adjusted his glasses, praising the plan, and signaled they should commence. They then encircled the sand monstrosity from every angle. Shore awaited their strategy with anticipation but reminded them of the ticking clock. Zealand reflected that she expected the golem to best Yuki, but conceded Landon's miscalculation, and noted his comfort in watching rather than acting. Meanwhile, as they deliberated, the golem had already taken hits from all sides. Baboon employed his gigantism. The chubby fellow fired his live bullet and slammed it into the golem's leg. The pink-haired girl unleashed her destructive shaking technique. Zealand hung back, lamenting her lack of a powerful skill, but resolved to do her utmost. She sprinted forward and struck the golem's massive finger with all her might, but it hardly budged. Then they all converged on a final assault and the golem collapsed. The chubby guy asked if it was really that simple. Baboon replied it wasn't. The sand around the wounds moved toward the core to heal itself. The exam area was all built on Earth. Zealand realized his point. As long as the golem touches land, it regenerates. Baboon noted it's effectively invincible there. The pink-haired girl asked how to prevent its contact with the ground. Baboon praised her insight, calling her brilliant. That would have been easiest, yet none of the 5 possessed levitation. The lanky fellow asked what they should do now. 10 minutes clearly isn't enough. Yuji, fed up with their incompetence, snarled they were sheep and threatened to quit. Baboon wondered if they'd any other option. Zealand pointed to the 10-minute limit as a clue. The chubby man noted time was all they knew. The pink-haired girl speculated the golem weakens by the minute. Baboon urged them to exhaust every tactic and never give up. With that, they all launched a coordinated assault on the sand golem. After 7 grueling minutes, they were spent. The fat man wiped sweat and asked how many times it had regenerated. Could it be endless? Baboon, barely breathing, noted each recovery left it smaller but stronger and faster. Did it truly have no bounds? Zealand stepped forward, insisting her power might exploit its current state. She activated her sphere of omniscience. Foreseeing the golem strike at Baboon, she dashed to warn him. Baboon froze, stunned to find the golem already by his side. The golem then lunged at the pink-haired girl, but the chubby boy interposed his shield. He invoked his barrier skill and cautioned her to guard her head. He turned to Zealand, relieved she'd joined them, and urged Yukai to step in. He'd silently believed in him all along. Yukai watched, realizing Zealand's presence balanced their odds. Shore reminded him of the ticking clock, prompting him to reconsider its link to their abilities. Suddenly, it all became clear. He raised his hand, aimed at the golem, and unleashed his fire technique. Snapping his fingers, he set the sand monster ablaze. Someone asked if it was melting. Baboon shouted to stop. Fire doesn't melt sand, it transmutes it. The blazing golem hardened into a stone guardian with an invincible body. The fat man panicked, convinced they were doomed and could not win now. Baboon charged the stone guardian, urging the fat man not to lose hope. This wasn't over. Yet his gigantism blow left no crack. He was stunned by its impervious form. The stone guardian casually flung Baboon aside. Baboon lay helpless, asking if there truly was no further recourse. The fat man, terrified, declared he wanted to surrender. Zealand, furious, glared at Yukai, accusing him of ignorance and demanding an alternative solution. Then, Yukai glanced at them and asked why they looked so defeated. Did they really think he hadn't anticipated this? After round 1, Stage 3 only began an hour later. It was Shifu who'd said the Guardian must fall in 10 minutes, but she'd hinted the true time limit was an hour, not 10 minutes. The fat man blinked and asked what that meant and how they were to proceed. Yukai explained that Stage 3 measures both might and teamwork. Each must play a part. He directed that the Queen distract the Guardian so the fat man could strike. Zealand's role was to divert its gaze, allowing the fat man an opening. Then Baboon would launch the fat man directly at the beast. Afterward, the fat man noted he knew of his speed, but was struck from a blind side. Next, the Queen soared upward and smashed the stone guardian's head, declaring, "Taste this!" Yukai nodded, pointing out that hidden behind her, even a swift guardian couldn't mentally track the attack. And stone repels sand. The 3 examiners watched. The voodoo examiner applauded, impressed they'd completed the task in an hour by trusting their commander. He confessed he admired Yukai more and more as a leader. 2 weeks later, Yukai expected a top assignment to prove himself, but events hadn't unfolded as he'd hoped. Now, he and the fat man trekked through the city's mountainous outskirts, baffled by the turn of events. Within the city, monsters appeared daily, except in their own patrol zone, which lay eerily silent. Shah Hussein had assured him an S-rank area suited rookies. Yukai, furious, accused her of deceit. The fat man told him to stop whining. Since they had little to do, their 10,000 salary was almost undeserved. Yukai scoffed that 10,000 was trivial. He hungered for bonuses from slaying Emperor-level beasts to amass a fortune. The fat man, stunned, asked about Emperor rank. Monsters vary from terrestrial to imperial. The latter city destroyers the Union avoids. Yukai explained he was on the whitelist and had to earn glory points to reach the sky list before tackling those threats. Impatient, he pulled out his phone, opened his chat with Aunt Shah, and daily asked about profitable contracts. She always refused. He made a video call. Shah answered at once and noted their region's calm, a welcome relief. Then she warned monsters had surfaced elsewhere, and the peace wouldn't last. Afterwards, he decided to try his luck and phoned wise Zealand. He called her up, smiled, and asked if she was free at the moment. Zealand replied that she was busy because a barbell beetle had appeared in her sector. The 3 of them were in charge, while the shore kept watch from afar. Yukai kept smiling and proposed swapping districts with her. Zealand snapped that there was no baboon word, and that lying was perilous. Then the line went dead. Yukai's anger flared. He shouted into the phone for her not to hang up, insisting she listen through. But it was too late. She'd already cut the call. Yugi raged inwardly, convinced he'd lent her Xiangshan's district, only for her to disconnect. They pressed onward, and Yukai lamented another idle day. The stout fellow mentioned he'd bought a game and asked if Yukai wanted to play. When they returned, the game was titled Operation Capture the Girls' School. Yukai snapped to his feet, clicked his tongue, declared he didn't care, and sprinted off in the opposite direction. The stout man shouted after him, questioning where he was headed. Yukai explained he was running into the city to slay every monster and prove to the Union that sending him here was a mistake. Though fierce battles raged in the city itself, people along the beachfront measured life by leisure, relaxing, enjoying photo shoots, confident the Union would resolve any crisis. So why were Ulm and his team, the baboon and the queen, dealing with every monster? Zealand displayed her stats. A war rating of 75 out of clearing a monster had earned her 5 glory points. She then asked how many points each of them had. Meanwhile, an enraged Yukai raced through the city, determined that nothing would stop him today, even if his glory points remained at 0. Battles had already broken out in one district. A bystander reported they needed backup in the 5th district. A massive white orangutan monster of standard difficulty appeared. It charged past Yukai and was dispatched in an instant by his swift strike. Sting, a white rank warrior, stood stunned. Turning to his partner Mole, also white rank, he asked if he'd seen what happened. But Mole could only gape as Argentango fell in a heartbeat. Yukai then dashed into the next district, where a winged boa constrictor, an operative-level beast, awaited. 2 yellow rank warriors confronted it, Fang and Frost Snake. Frost Snake proposed they coordinate to defeat a monster of that caliber. Fang agreed, noting that without immobilizing the boa, the fight would have been far more difficult. In that moment, Kai's lightning bolt streaked down and felled the constrictor. Frost Snake asked if it was truly dead. Feng, aghast, remarked that the power behind that flash suggested a black rank warrior at minimum. Frost Snake admitted it didn't look like it, yet conceded that only 2 individuals in the Union wielded such power, and both were dedicated to their principles. Yukai pressed his thunderous campaign through every district, proclaiming them his, and announcing that the strongest monster must have already appeared. Nearby, a couple held a beach photo shoot. The man behind the camera pointed toward the horizon and asked what that shape was. A colossal megalodon emerged from the waves. An Earth Demon-class monster, the very beast that had laid waste to their city 5 years earlier. The man dropped his camera and ran away, screaming. A notification buzzed on Yuki's phone. He paused, checked it, and read that on June 16th an Earth Demon-level megalodon had surfaced, urging nearby soldiers to protect and evacuate civilians. Yuki wondered, what's an Earth Demon level? Assign Ilya to the city called Cave, covering 30 districts, with the 16th district situated by the sea. He read another alert. Was there more? It reported a colossal Tang-level squid attacking the megalodon, and requested idle black rank warriors to reach District 11 in 10 minutes and neutralize it. After finishing the message, Yuki declared it a worthy challenge and sprinted toward District. Upon arrival, he noted that the squid was far larger than he had imagined. The squid sneered at humans for slaughtering sea life and polluting the waters, claiming his title as Lord of the Seas and demanding they pay with their lives. Yuki spotted the beast and addressed the squid directly. Standing atop the waves, Yuki challenged the squid to repeat its threats. The creature lunged, snarling that Yuki seemed eager to become sushi and vowing to turn him into a meal. Yuki retorted that he'd dealt the squid a grievous wound, prompting a pained howl from the beast. In response, the squid dragged Yuki underwater, but Yuki unleashed a fiery technique in return. The attack fizzled. Yuki wondered why and knew he had to improvise before other warriors arrived. Realizing he needed greater power, he prepared to scorch the entire sea with his Pillar of Fire technique. Yuki inscribed a massive fire seal across the ocean's surface. With a snap, he ignited the sea in roaring flames. Yuki clamped his hands over his ears, scolding the squid to stop its screaming and shut its mouth. He then called the squid a large, foolish creature. Enraged, the squid threatened to fry Yuki and grind his bones to dust. Yuki shot back that he'd already forced the squid to open its filthy maw. What poor manners! The squid mused that only someone from City K could wield such power. He doubted his strongest strike could fell Yuki, especially with other warriors approaching, and Yuki's energy pillar resisting water techniques. He proclaimed that Yuki would soon learn he was the strongest human he'd ever faced, though he couldn't savor or remember such foes for long. Yuki asked if the squid intended to flee. The squid replied he couldn't be stopped, having already slain half the city's warriors with minimal loss, and now the stakes were even higher. Yuki refused to back down, reminding the squid he'd vowed to cut him down, and he meant to keep that promise. Mocking Yuki, The squid boasted that his blood-churned water tornado would turn Yuki's fire to steam, making him dinner, then dove back into the ocean's depths. Afterwards, Yuki declared he'd move on to the next megalodon. A warrior swooped in, planted his feet, and drove his weapon into the water, parting the flood to shield bystanders. He then hurled his heavenly spear straight at the rampaging megalodon. A news helicopter arrived overhead. The reporter gushed that Mulan-chan was a prodigy adored by billions, single-handedly taking down the city's destroyer. Truly astonishing. But Mulan-chan looked on in shock and murmured that she couldn't believe she was still alive. The reporter ordered the pilot to climb higher. He hesitated, warning they'd stall. She snapped that she'd rather drown in a shark's belly than look incompetent on air. The pilot grimaced, realizing it was trickier than fighting on land or relying on a chopper. He edged closer to Dawn's book and prepared to unleash his deadly sunfall technique again. The megalodon taunted that its maw, lined with adhesive secretions, would trap any puny attacker unable to break free. Mulan-chan shivered at the overwhelming aura of danger, stronger now than ever before. Suddenly, Wu Yukai charged in, focusing all his energy into a crushing blow and shouting, "Die!" He struck the megalodon with fiery power, and the beast collapsed, lifeless. The helicopter spiraled down, crash-landing. The battered reporter climbed out, marveling at how the warrior's flames defeated a megalodon and saved Cave City. She introduced herself as Maya, the city's top TV anchor, and begged for an interview. The warrior glared silently and strode away without a word. The shameless reporter quipped that though he was famed as the Ice Mountain, he sure could ignite women's interest. Until her cameraman shushed her drooling. Spotting survivors, Maya suggested they interview them next. She waved him off, saying only the bold should handle reporting. Unfazed, Yuki retrieved his phone, checked his app, and saw the monster wave declared cleared, thanking soldiers for keeping civilians safe. He smirked and remarked that now he could collect his reward. At Union headquarters, Zealand, the Elder, and the Queen climbed the stairs. Zealand admitted she hadn't expected such a swift resolution, and though she downplayed her role, she beamed with pride. The Elder mused they might one day match the two heroes, one who felled the megalodon, the other the six-headed squid, Rajab Gant, despite news claiming a single person handled every threat citywide. Zealand halted her companions and asked, "What's that?" "Isn't that Yuki's crest?" They approached, puzzled. "Why's he here?" they asked. Yuki didn't deny it. He'd come for the reward, claiming he'd slain all the monsters himself. The Elder shook his head in disbelief. "Has nature driven you mad?" he scoffed. Yuki just laughed and challenged them. "All right, what's my payout?" Lisa Luna interjected, "Wait, did you misread the news?" Yuki leaned over her phone and asked, "Where am I praised?" "Show me the article." Reading the headline threw him into shock. It accused him of taking credit for others' deeds. The reporter sneered, "Before you claim achievements, learn the basic rules." Yuki scratched his head. "Rules?" he asked, confused. "What do you mean? What happens in warrior class?" He recalled dozing through every lesson and asked, "Isn't killing monsters all it takes to become a warrior? Are there extra requirements?" She snapped, "As I said, riffraff like you lack any awareness of warrior etiquette." The Elder chuckled, noting, "They're at it again." Then, he patiently explained, "Warriors must accept a mission before hunting a monster. If a task isn't public, you photograph the creature and submit it to the Union." He showed Yuki the app. He continued, "To prevent reckless glory-seeking, each rank can select appropriate missions. White rank for standard threats, yellow for enhanced, black for Earth Demon level, Earth for Tiangong, and Heavenly for Imperial. Higher ranks may hunt lower-level monsters, but never above their own rank." Yuki pondered and asked, "So I can only claim ordinary monsters now? If I kill a high-level beast, nobody will recognize it?" The Elder nodded. "Security reasons, rules are strict. Glory seekers who break them get nothing." Yuki groaned. "This is ridiculous. There are no monsters in my assigned area, and assignments only update yearly. Am I stuck here forever?" The others looked at him, bewildered. Yuki sighed. "My parents sent me from another world and ordered me to earn 1 billion in 3 years, or I can't go home." They gasped in unison. "You're from another world?" Then they burst out laughing. "What a prank!" The Elder clapped Laser on the shoulder. "You've got sharp eyes, and this boy's both strong and clever. Stick with him." Blushing, she waved him off. "I don't like him at all. Stop pairing us up." She flushed, remembering his smile and teasing question. Why didn't it suit her? No girl could resist falling for him. Yuki snapped his fingers and declared the decision final. No one grasped his meaning, but he merely smiled and extended his hand to Lisa. Lisa wondered if he was inviting her to embrace or explain himself. He held out his hand in silence. He reminded her she still owed him what she'd promised. First, he'd helped her qualify as a warrior, and she'd vowed payment upon passing. Second, she owed him for each day she used Zail Shan's power, agreed at 3% of her earnings. She erupted in fury, kicking him and shouting that he should die. Afterward, they went to the bank. At the ATM, his balance read 76. He began calculating how much more he needed. Suddenly, an Earth-level warrior, 2 Yen, burst in and stood beside Yuki at the ATM. 2 Yen flashed his badge. Yuki immediately recognized the Earth-level insignia. 2 Yen tapped his badge on the ATM, which prompted him to set a PIN. Yuki peeked, guessing he wanted to check his mission count. A while later, 2 Yen exited and his friends on the street noticed his gloom. Chung asked if he'd mistyped the transfer account. Yuki sighed, waved off the question, and asked if they knew how much Earth-level warriors held in their accounts. He choked up, admitting that seeing their balances made him realize he couldn't claim Earth-level rewards. A painful blow. 2 Yen reassured him, "Be patient. Everyone starts small and grows stronger." He was certain Yuki would reach heavenly rank. The queen agreed. The baboon grinned and told the queen the same. Yuki's future was bright, since his predictions never failed. Patting Yuki's shoulder, he advised him to stop worrying. Tradition called for a feast and bonus after a task well done, and they'd honor it. The queen cheered. "Hurrah! Let's celebrate!" They entered a cafe. Baboon by the queen, Lisa and Lycan opposite Yuki. Lisa fumed at the seating. Men one side, women the other. At the next table, 2 2-yen warriors bragged. One praised Yuki's defeat of the 6-headed squid and Megalodon, claiming equal merit. The other predicted he'd soon lead Earth-level champions. Yuki overheard 6-headed, his recent foe. One warrior then demanded to know exactly how he killed it. Yuki replied that was fine, but first he needed a quick restroom break. In the bathroom, he froze. He had no answer and shivered at the thought. Then 2 Yen appeared, asking if he'd collected the squid-slaying reward. Yuki mustered a stern expression as 2 Yen menacingly asked, "Do you have an explanation?" Yuki admitted he had none. He simply wanted the payout for cutting the squid to pieces. YN2 assessed Yuki's arrogance and retorted that, as a white-rank rookie fit only for small monsters, he had no right to claim others' achievements. Yuki declared he'd never get a confession willingly and vowed to beat it out of him. The warrior laughed coldly, face darkening. "Do you know who you're addressing?" "I'm an Earth rank known as the Impenetrable." Yuki shot back, "Call yourself what you like, but today I'm taking my reward." The warrior bristled. "Provoking me? Fine. No mercy." He squared off and warned Yuki to brace for death. 2 juniors yelled, "Stop! You can't fight here. Civilians are at risk." They urged them to pick a proper arena. Yuki waved them off. "I've already warned the Union of an Earth-level monster here. It's just us." The warrior fumed. "The Union will fine us for false alarms." Yet seeing Yuki ready, he spat. "You asked for this." Yuki raised his blade. "Greed breeds misfortune." The warrior halted, sensing Yuki's immense aura. Astonished, he whispered, "Are you really only white rank?" Yuki frowned. "Your sword's glare triggers my photophobia." He fished glasses from his pocket. "Give me a minute. I'll adjust." Once he donned them, the warrior scanned Yuki's aura and recoiled in alarm. Terrified, he thought, "Is this an emperor-level beast in human form?" Panic-stricken, he bolted for the exit. He smashed through a wall onto the street, frozen in fear. This can't be real. Surrounded by crowds, he realized if Yuki exposed him, his life would collapse. He resolved to confess everything. He raced back, apologized, and placed 1 million as Yuki's reward. Yuki asked, "Why confess only now?" The 2 juniors begged, "Please don't let this story get out." Chip interjected, "I'll explain." "Why claim others' glory?" He hesitated. "It's a long tale, but since you asked, I was a frail bookworm, top of my class yet bullied. They mocked my grades, writing my name on the board as the best." He shivered at the memory, then noticed a classmate staring at him intently. During PE, a classmate deliberately hurled a ball at his head, sneered "nerd," and accused him of sneaking off to the AI lab instead of joining the games. Obviously the teacher's favorite. In truth, he was a loner who yearned to fit in, and believed becoming a warrior would earn him friends and respect. After intense training strengthened his body, he still failed the combat trials and, desperate to belong, resorted to cheating. He filmed himself beside the corpse of a Tang-level monster, as if he'd slain it, earning rank in missions, despite the Union's rules, gaining respect but living in constant fear of exposure. Yuki asked if he ever worried that spilling his secret would ruin him. He admitted that confessing lifted his dread somewhat, though his loneliness remained deep. Yuki laughed, admitting he hadn't expected such honesty, and urged him not to judge appearances. The warrior exhaled relief. Laying down that burden meant he no longer had to pretend. Though uneasy about changing his image, he welcomed the freedom. Yuki extended his hand, surprised. "Since you've trusted me, we're friends, and I'll share my secret in return. I'm Yuki, from beyond the New World," he said, "son of its supreme deity." The warrior gripped his hand firmly. "Is this true? It's an honor to befriend royalty. Who is this supreme deity?" Yuki withdrew his hand. "Because I'm divine-born, not a mere mortal." Yuki challenged, "Couldn't you have thought I was lying?" The warrior winked. Friends trust each other without doubt. Yuki realized friendship with him might be more valuable than he'd thought and asked, "By the way, how did you find the squid's corpse?" "You weren't just wandering." He removed his glasses and handed them over. "Try these, then you'll understand." Yuki placed them on and began scanning the warrior's aura. Seeing a reading of 182, Yuki marveled. The warrior explained he'd invented the glasses to gauge an opponent's spiritual strength, stronger or weaker. Yuki was thrilled. No wonder the warrior hadn't fled once he wore them. "What does this record?" he asked, pointing to spiritual test initiated. The warrior replied that he'd also coined spiritual pressure, the aura emanating from powerful individuals, and few could sense it. He calibrated points using union data against monster tiers. "Civilian score 0, he said. "White rank spans 20 to 50, yellow 50 to 200, black 200 to 500, earth 500 to 1000, and heavenly begins at 1000 upward." Yuki then asked, "And how many points do you have?" He shrugged. "Earth-level warriors are so rare, fewer than 100, that their true limits remain unknown." Yuki guessed another creature had slain the squid, but the warrior shook his head and denied it. Yuki pressed, "Really?" The warrior explained the wounds were human-made, yet nobody filed a claim, so he'd assumed both combatants died. He blushed, admitting shame over his deceit, but argued the culprit's identity didn't matter, though the truth made him uneasy. He confessed desperation. No merit meant no advancement, and he feared demotion. He just needed a single victory to prove himself. Yuki asked, "Mei-Ling Chen? Who is she? How do you know her when she's new and hasn't done any feats?" The warrior hesitated, then admitted he studies newcomers to con them later, but insisted Mei-Ling Chen was genuinely formidable. Yuki scoffed, "Blame the union's rules. Who'd remain white rank otherwise?" The warrior explained that rule emerged after his fraud 5 years ago. Imitators caused injuries and deaths, forcing stricter mission protocols. Yuki retorted, "So you're to blame. Why confess now? Give me your tasks. I'll fake them, we'll profit, and everyone wins." He replied he'd already confessed to the union, and asked Yuki if that was his best move. Yuki embraced him. "Friends now, right?" The warrior nodded, saying friends must trust fully and vowing he'd never lie. "Together we'll uphold our duty and protect civilians," Yuki declared. The warrior paled, admitting he'd assumed the same. Yuki grinned. "It's a pure benefit, no downsides. You can't refuse." After a pause, the warrior conceded that made sense, and he wouldn't alert the union. Then Millington himself appeared, demanding to know why they'd sounded a false Earth-level monster alert. Turning to Yuki, he warned, "You're Yuki, correct? This breach could expel and fine you both. Explain now." Tu Yen stepped in, snarling at Millington. "Mind your own business!" Millington smirked. "Protecting him? Seems you gained by keeping him close." Yuki froze, convinced his expulsion from the union was imminent. Panicked, the warrior whispered, "Are we truly being kicked out? Didn't they brief you on the rules?" Tu gasped, asking if he'd never heard them. Yuki scratched his head guiltily, but Tu Yen hurried to reassure him. "Relax. While I'm here, nothing bad will happen." Yuki asked, "So what's your plan?" Their quiet chatter was cut short by Mei-Ling Chen, who demanded of Tu Yen, "Enough whispering. Explain exactly what's going on." Tu Yen snapped, "Stop the pressure. I knew we were rivals, but I lost it when I learned his squid outclassed my megalodon. Such envy. Can I even serve as a warrior like that?" Mei-Ling Chen, furious, shot back. "Arrogant and envious? In 2 years I've never seen you fight. Only the strongest deserve respect, not glory hunters." Tu bristled. "Then let's settle this, one-on-one." Millington grinned. "Fine, get union approval, but your ranks let you roam districts freely. From today until summer's end, the warrior who slays more monsters wins." He turned to leave, calling over his shoulder, Don't fall too far behind. After Millington departed, Tu Yen exhaled. Finally. There were times I thought he'd attack at once. His aura is scorching. Grabbing Yuki's shoulder, Tu Yen said, I'll leave this to you. Yuki, worried about unintended fallout, nodded in agreement. Tu laughed. It's more mental strain than brawn. Yuki chuckled. With tactics like these, we'll fool everyone. Yuki asked, What do we do with this? Your expulsion won't derail our plan, but I hate to see you kicked out. Tu Yen replied, I'll visit headquarters soon. Expect good news. More warriors arrived, sealing off the cafe with union ribbons. Sting exclaimed, I found her on the island's roster. She's 17, 160 centimeters tall, friendly but unpolished, blood type O, Gemini, hobbies, singing, pets, manga, rank, white, Sting announced. Mole nudged Sting. Lucky you spotted that new beauty. Xing fretted. He's been gone so long, hope he's all right. Sting reassured her. Why are Tu's with him, and Mei Ling's on the case? Xing relaxed. Thanks, that eases my mind. Sting introduced himself. I'm Sai, joined a year before you. Come to me if you need anything. Xing blinked. Older than me? Sai grinned. Yes, I've watched you a while. Didn't expect you'd join us. Zealand bristled at the fuss and snapped that she hated the attention. Lucky you, she muttered. Mole grunted beside the baboon. Lucky? I only just found out. The baboon chuckled. Kids today are so blunt. I'm out of touch. He remembered Aunt Shaw asking why he joined the Union. He'd said to protect the city, but now realized he meant to protect Zealand. A voice called, There he is. Yuki emerged with why Sai introduced him to Xing. This is my bro Yuki, Earth rank. If you're in danger, he's got your back. Xing hurried to Yuki. Are you all right? He teased. Doubt my strength, Yuki replied with a confident grin. Xing fumed silently. Just a few words and he'd already irritated her again. Sai intervened. Stop calling him a kid. If not for him, we'd still be feeding monsters. Yuki and Tu Yen exchanged knowing smiles as the others bickered. We must go, Yuki told his two friends. Sai barked. Wait up! I haven't schooled you yet. As they walked off, Sai whispered to Tu Yen that Xing was already smitten. Do they even suit each other? Waita Tu thought, what does he know? That boy will watch my back. Next morning, anchor Maya broadcast live outside Union HQ, reporting yesterday's monster wave was suppressed. Yet citizens protested for better protection. Crowds gathered, waving signs demanding stronger defenses. In the cafe, the owl fumed at the broadcast. This union saves no one. My family died. Shaw, summoned for a meeting, asked why the owl wanted to see her. He replied Yuki had departed Cave City. Shaw noted that was expected. He hadn't returned after his mission. The owl warned Shaw about the mysterious Earth rank Tu Yen and requested a joint assignment with Yuki. He praised their rapid bond and urged caution. Shaw presented a vial of fresh monster blood, urging the owl not to disappoint their patron. The owl assured her he'd soon engineer a warrior-like being to replace these so-called heroes. Walking home, the owl sensed someone trailing him. Why follow me? He demanded. A man stepped forward. No issue, I chose to. The owl attacked, but the stranger proved far stronger and countered fiercely. The man sneered at the owl. Who'd guess you'd demolish the Hidden Dragon clan only to become a wounded stray dog, ready to snap at anyone? He released the owl and added, But you're snarling at the wrong pack. We're cut from the same cloth. Who do you think you are? I've transcended, the stranger replied. Call me Gelding. In Mountain City S, famous for pandas and steaming hot pots, Yuki and Tu Yen shared a meal in the dining car. Yuki asked if Tu Yen had already alerted the Union to test their emergency response. 4 Earth-rank warriors in the Alliance matter to them, he mused. But it's odd they didn't question you. A server arrived with their hot pot. Yuki beamed. At last, the city's classic hot pot. So lucky. Yuki hesitated. That's weird. Really worth eating? He tried it anyway, melting into bliss. I'm king, he declared, promising to claim the throne. Tu Yen checked. You okay? Yuki grinned. How can something taste this divine? He tasted it, frowned and spat. It's tough and gamey. Why is this hailed as a specialty? Tu Yen whispered to Yuki. Bad luck he's here. Why's she dining with us? Yuki replied. Geniuses think alike. The city's mountain passes breed monsters, so we must eat fast and slip away unnoticed. Only one morsel remained. Both reached and grabbed it, exclaiming, Geniuses think alike. The train lurched violently. Yuki noticed immediately. A portly man stormed out, having slain the crew. He proclaimed, This train's next stop is death. He boasted, I'm fiercer than armor and the Tiangong ground beasts, even against 2 Earth-rank fighters. How thrilling. He unleashed a spiritual beast, a divine-level rhino outside. Yuki groaned. This rhino's doomed. Tu Yen rose. Our priority is every passenger's safety. Muling-chan, can you handle a charging rhino? Mei-ling-chan frowned. Rhinos seldom attack. Someone must have driven it mad. The bulky man reappeared, voicing grief. My calves died on this train. Which of you, Y2 or Mei-ling-chan, will face me? Mei-ling-chen stepped forward. I'll take on the rhino. 2,000 yen, back me up. Don't let me down. Turning to the crowd, Tu Yen announced, I'm Earth-rank combat soldier Yen, I'll keep you all safe. The passengers cheered, relieved by the presence of an Earth-rank warrior. Yuki glared at the fat man. And you? You're here to kill us? The man smirked. Today, it's you I hunt. Yuki shrugged and asked, What's your plan then? The man unleashed a burst of flame. Yuki winced as it seared his flesh. The man snarled and charged, flames blazing. Yuki met him with his own fire. Yuki gasped, Your ability absorbs energy? Rare, so I need something stronger. As Yuki's fire clashed, the man sneered, Your flames pale compared to mine. Tu Yen explained, His power feeds on stronger auras, higher than your fire. A brutal duel erupted. Yuki warned, It's not over! You'll regret this! And pressed the attack. The man grunted, I must absorb more, but you're immune to spirit attacks. Our sworn enemy. Watching in horror, Tuan muttered, What strength is this? Yuki turned to Tu Yen. What's happening? Tu Yen shouted, Every strike empowers him. Why not just obliterate him? Yuki replied, He'd take out the train. 2,000 yen cautioned. Civilians aboard. If he explodes, it's a bomb. Yuki asked, Can you contain the blast? Confused, Tu Yen scanned again. He started at 400 plus, now off the charts. So he's over 1,000. Heaven rank, Yuki concluded. But saving lives is harder than killing him. Y2 noted. Mei-ling's from an ancient martial clan. She uses only physical arts. Yuki inquired. Ancient clan? Recalling Shu Link's mention of hidden power. What's special? Tu Yen explained. Before spirit users rose, ancient clans battled monsters with peak physical prowess. They epitomized a glorious era, pushing human limits, he added. But when spirit-born fighters emerged, limitless and stronger, the ancient clans fell into seclusion. Yuki considered 2 S-words and said he understood martial artist heritage, then asked if Ling Shan could truly wield those ancient techniques to fell the sky rhino. Tu Yen nodded, explaining the rhino's last absorption peaked. Only once it drops to black rank strength could Ling Shan hope to prevail. The woman trembled. Please don't hurt me. Aren't you a martial artist? He snarled, Martial artist? No. I was ordinary like you until I found a way to grow stronger. Pressing a vial into her hand, he whispered she could become like him if she drank. Learning to fight in a world of masters. Actually, he smirked, this realm of martial elites began 10 years ago. If only the League hadn't blocked it. Yuki frowned. What's he rambling about? Tu Yen, furious, spat. That was the Biotrans revolt. They've returned to battle the Fighters League, for real. Yuki mused it sounded profit-driven. Could the League hire them to capture these rebels? Tu Yen shook his head, and Yuki's hopes for side income dimmed. Y2 warned, the Heavenly Evolution Society is heresy. Destroy them before the beasts. No dealings with that cult. Yuki's mind raced. Was Zealand tied to this? He glared at Gelding. Why are you really here? If it's just your tech, you're unworthy of that rank. Gelding laughed. I'm here for Zealand. She's destined to become Eve of the New World. The woman, terrified, agreed to drink, begging him not to harm her. Yuki lunged, knocking the vial away and declaring, This fight isn't over. The fat man roared and swung. Yuki blocked the blow with his forearm. He taunted, You'll need more than that to best me. Yuki shouted to Tu Yen, tossing him the purple-filled vial. Catch! Tu Yen snatched it with his teeth, careful not to break it, then ushered passengers to safety and urged Yuki back into the car. Yuki readied to concentrate his spirit power, but the fat man reappeared, exulting in his growing strength. Grabbing his attacker's arm, Yuki tried for a throw. The man grinned and resisted. Now it's my turn. The giant shoved Yuki aside, taunting that battling him was far more entertaining than playing with his brother's toys, then swung at him again. Yuki realized his physical strength outmatched civilians, yet without his powers, he couldn't prevail. Glancing at his hand, Yuki saw the wound the brute had inflicted, and wondered if this blood was truly from a creature born of this cruel world. He steeled himself, convinced that he would have to end this fight decisively.